There are things women will never say out loud, but a seasoned man, he picks up on them anyway. If you've ever loved someone with your whole heart and still ended up rejected or confused, maybe it's because no one ever taught you the 13 things women are truly drawn to. This isn't a pickup trick. It's a real-world guide for the man who wants to stay solid, steady, and grounded from the inside out. 1. Personal discipline. Let me paint you a picture. You're standing in the middle of a chaotic world. People are chasing emotions, following every impulse, living for the next dopamine hit. Social media is filled with so-called successful men showing off their wild, indulgent lifestyles. But here's the truth. The one man who stands still, calm, and disciplined is the one everyone quietly pays attention to. I've worked with thousands of men over 40. Many of them came to me after a divorce, a business failure, or a personal breakdown. And what helped them rebuild wasn't some motivational quote. It was discipline. Simple, steady, personal discipline. Waking up early when no one's watching, working out without anyone cheering them on, saying no to that third drink, even when the whole table says yes. They weren't perfect, but they took ownership. They chose to lead themselves. Have you ever felt that small surge of power when you follow through on something you promised yourself? Even something small. And suddenly you feel stronger, like you just took back a little piece of control over your own life. Epictetus. The great Stoic teacher once said, "Freedom begins with discipline." And that's not just a wise quote for your wall. That's real-life truth. Because once you stop being ruled by your emotions, your cravings, or your bad habits, you actually start living free. You stop being a slave to temptation. You stop letting other people, women included, dictate how you feel, think, and act. And here's the thing. Women won't always say it out loud, but they notice. They're drawn to the man who's grounded, not the guy who shines one moment and falls apart the next. The disciplined man builds trust, real trust, because he's not just dependable with others, he's dependable with himself. And today, in this noisy, fast-paced, shallow world, that kind of man is rare. And that's exactly what makes him unforgettable. 2. Ignored attention. When you give too much, it stops meaning anything. Have you ever noticed this? The easier something is to get, the less we tend to value it. I remember one time a successful, intelligent man in his 50s sat down with me for a session. He looked frustrated and said, "I gave her everything. I called her every single day, texted her goodnight, told her how beautiful she was all the time. I was all in. I really loved her." Then he paused. "But she grew distant, colder. I don't get it." And I told him something simple, something that made him go silent for a moment. You did too much, without giving her the chance to actually want it. See, women, just like all of us, don't value attention that comes from a place of neediness or emotional urgency. When something is always available, it loses its weight. It's just human nature. But when a man holds back a little, not because he's playing games, but because he's grounded, centered, and doesn't need validation, his attention becomes powerful, rare, and worth something. Have you ever had that experience? You stop chasing, and suddenly she starts noticing. Not because you're manipulating, but because we all crave what's scarce. A Stoic man understands this deeply. He doesn't flood her with desperate messages. He doesn't drown her in compliments hoping to win her over. He holds something of himself back, not to be cold, but because he knows his presence is more valuable when it's not scattered everywhere. So next time you feel that urge to chase, to reach out, just to feel seen or wanted, pause. Ask yourself, is my attention becoming too cheap? Because here's the truth sometimes. Silence holds more power than 1,000 sweet words. And the man who can sit calmly in that silence, that's the man who stands out. 3. The bad boy. Why women are drawn to mystery, not perfection. Let me ask you to think back for a second. Have you ever been that guy? The one who was kind, respectful, always trying to do the right thing, only to end up ignored, ghosted, or heartbroken. And meanwhile, there's another guy. A little reckless, kind of distant unapologetically himself. And for some reason, women can't get enough of him. Yeah, we call him the bad boy. But here's the truth. It's not about being mean. It's about being unapologetically grounded in who you are. I've met many men like this in my life. Former soldiers, rugged artists, entrepreneurs who built something from nothing. They're not jerks. They just don't need validation from anyone. They live by their own code. And that freedom, that mystery, that sense that you'll never fully figure him out, that triggers something primal in the female mind. A deep desire to figure him out, to get closer, to understand him. Have you ever seen that happen? She says she wants a nice, stable guy, but her heart is chasing someone who keeps her guessing why. Because mystery is fuel for attraction, and the unknown, when done right, is irresistible. Now let's bring in some Stoic wisdom here. A true bad boy in the Stoic sense isn't angry, cold, or careless. He's emotionally self-controlled. He doesn't react to every mood around him. He doesn't bend just to make others happy. He knows who he is, and he doesn't apologize for living in alignment with that. I'm not telling you to become some cold, distant man. But I am telling you this: stop asking for permission to be yourself. Don't give away your entire story on the first date. Don't jump every time your phone buzzes. Because sometimes holding part of yourself back is exactly what makes others want to see more. That's not manipulation. That's self-respect. And trust me, that quiet mystery, it speaks volumes, more than any grand gesture ever could. 4. Inner stillness, the quiet power that women can feel. I want you to picture this. You're sitting in a noisy coffee shop. People are talking over each other. Phones are buzzing. Traffic is roaring outside. Everyone's distracted, scrolling, fidgeting, rushing. And then you notice one man. He's sitting quietly, calm, not on his phone, not reacting to the noise. He's just there, still, grounded, steady, like a rock in the middle of a rushing river. That's inner stillness. And after more than 30 years working with men in their 40s and 50s, I can tell you this: women don't necessarily look for the guy who always says the right thing or checks all the boxes. They're looking for the man who can stay calm in the middle of the storm. I once worked with a man who had just gone through a painful divorce. He told me I lost control. I let anger, jealousy, insecurity take over. And when I lost control of myself, I lost her too. See, Stoic philosophy teaches us we can't control the world, but we can always control how we respond to it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, faced war, rebellion, even plagues. But if you read his journals, what you'll find isn't panic. It's peace, presence, clarity. He didn't collapse under pressure. Why? Because his strength didn't come from power or wealth. It came from the inside, from his ability to remain centered no matter what was happening around him. And women, They feel this instantly. When she's anxious, you stay steady. When she's upset, you don't match her with anger. When life feels chaotic, you remain her safe harbor. You ever met a man like that? He doesn't rush. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to prove anything. He just walks into a room and the energy shifts. I want you to know you can become that man. Start by not reacting so quickly. Take a breath. Listen more. Speak less, but mean what you say. Because in a world full of noise, stillness is power. And the man who can master his own energy is the one who commands the room without ever needing to raise his voice. 5. Charismatic leadership. Why women respect men who lead themselves. I want you to think back to a first date, or picture yourself sitting across from a woman who's smart, confident, and deeply self-aware. She's not just listening to what you say. She's quietly evaluating something else. Can I trust this man? Can I follow him? If life gets messy, can I lean on him when things fall apart? See, women aren't just drawn to looks or humor. They're drawn to leadership. Not the kind that runs a company, but the kind that can lead a life with clarity and conviction. I once worked with a man in his early 50s, a retired military officer turned entrepreneur. And when he started dating again, he didn't try to impress anyone. He just showed up. He planned the evening. He guided the conversation. He listened with real focus. And when decisions needed to be made, he made them. Women noticed that right away. They felt safe. More than that, they felt free. Free to stop leading every moment, stop managing everything, and just relax. Because true leadership isn't about control, it's about presence. Let me ask you, when you walk into a room, do people sense direction in you? Do you know what you want? Can you make decisions without looking around for permission? In Stoic philosophy, leadership doesn't come from external power. It comes from integrity, from living by principles, not emotions, from leading yourself first. Epictetus said it well. Don't wait for someone to guide you. Learn to stand on your own, and others will follow. And it's true. When you lead your own life clearly, calmly, with responsibility, women naturally feel drawn to that energy. Not because you push them, but because they want to walk with a man who knows where he's going. You don't need to bark orders. You just need to live with direction. So next time you sit down for a conversation, don't wait for her to lead. Be the one who opens the space. Set the tone. Stay rooted in who you are. You don't need to control anyone, just own yourself. And that's the kind of leadership that quietly captivates. 6. Self-sufficiency. Why needing less makes you irresistible? I want you to sit with this question for a moment. How many times in your life have you handed your happiness over to someone else? Maybe you felt empty when a text didn't come, disappointed when your effort wasn't returned. Maybe you felt less, just because someone didn't show up the way you hoped they would. Yeah, I've been there too. In my younger years, I really believed love could somehow fill in all the empty spaces inside me. But over time, and thanks to Stoic philosophy, I realized something life-changing. No one else can rescue you from emotional dependence, except you. Now let's be clear. Self-sufficiency doesn't mean being alone. It means being able to stand on your own emotionally, spiritually, mentally, without clinging to someone else to feel whole. I worked with a man in his 40s. He'd gone through a devastating divorce, and instead of chasing after his ex, he chose a different path. He turned inward. He started waking up early, worked out every morning, learned to meditate, revisited the wisdom of old Stoic thinkers like Seneca. And after almost a year, he looked at me and said, "I no longer need anyone to feel worthy." And that's when people started wanting to stay in my life. You see, women may never say it out loud, but they can feel when a man needs them to survive. And they also feel it deeply when a man chooses them from a place of freedom, not fear of loneliness. A self-sufficient man isn't cold or closed off. He can love deeply. He can care genuinely. But he doesn't trade away his soul for attention. He's the kind of man who can sit alone in a cafe, no phone, no company, and still feel at peace. And from that deep inner stability, he becomes attractive in a way that no charm or game could ever fake. So I'll ask you honestly, are you living from a place of wholeness, or are you waiting for someone to come fill the gaps? Really think about that, because when you no longer need anyone to feel enough, that's when you become the man people want to be around. 7. Confidence, the kind that doesn't need to be loud. I want you to remember a moment from your life. Maybe it was a business meeting, a first date, or the moment you stepped into a room full of strangers. Have you ever noticed someone they didn't say much, didn't try to impress anyone, and yet somehow the whole room turned to look? That's real confidence. These days, we're surrounded by flashy noise men shouting about their success, showing off their cars, their muscles, their status. But let's be honest, a lot of that, it's just fear dressed up. Fear of not being enough. Fear of not being seen. It's not confidence. It's dependence wrapped in a shiny package. The kind of confidence Stoic philosophy teaches, it doesn't come from applause. It comes from within, from knowing who you are even when no one's clapping, even when no one's looking. I worked with a man in his mid-50s. He had just lost his job after 20 years at a big company. Along with it, he lost his title, his income, and his sense of identity. But we didn't start by updating his resume. We started by rebuilding something deeper, his inner value. We reminded him that he was still a man of integrity, still disciplined, still honest, still worthy no matter what job title he did or didn't have. And slowly, I watched him stand taller. His voice grew steadier. His eyes lit up again. One day, he said something I'll never forget. I don't need them to see me as successful. I just need to know that I'm enough. That's confidence, and women feel it immediately. Not the kind of confidence that brags or tries to prove anything, but the kind that says, "This is who I am, and I'm not apologizing for it." The man who can say, "I don't know" without shame. The man who owns his flaws. The man who can fail without falling apart. So if you want to build real confidence, don't chase approval. Keep your promises to yourself. Train. Show up. Do the work you said you'd do, even when no one's watching. Because every time you follow through, you strengthen the most important relationship of all, the one between you and yourself. And from that place, confidence doesn't have to be loud. It's steady. It's quiet. It's unshakable. You stand in the winds of life and still know exactly who you are. 8. Purposeful ambition. The quiet drive that makes you magnetic. I want you to picture this. You're talking to a man. He's not bragging or trying to impress you. He just casually mentions that he wakes up at 5 a.m. to write. He's learning about personal finance, and on weekends he trains so he can hike with his son this fall. He's not putting on a show, but you can feel it in your gut. This man is going somewhere. That is ambition. Not loud, not flashy, but clear, intentional, alive. Now look, we live in a time where it's easy to give up, easy to settle for good enough, easy to let life coast on autopilot. But women, especially women who've lived a little, aren't drawn to a man who's just comfortable. They're drawn to the man with a mission, the one who has a reason to get out of bed in the morning, the one who's chasing something bigger than himself. I once coached a man in his 40s, divorced, lost, unsure of what came next after his kids grew up and moved on. One day he said to me, "I feel useless, like there's nothing left to aim for." And I asked him one simple question. If you could leave behind one thing, what would it be? That question lit a spark. He went back to traditional woodworking, started teaching weekend classes for young men in his neighborhood, guys with no guidance, no direction, and little by little, he became the most magnetic man in his community. Not because of how he looked, but because of his purpose. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man who lives without purpose is already dead." Now in Stoicism, ambition isn't about chasing fame or money. It's about growth, legacy, meaning. It's the desire to evolve, to leave the world a little better than you found it, to live for something beyond your own comfort. And when a man walks his path, no matter how small or quiet women feel that, they see a man who's building something, who's not settling, who's in motion. And that movement, that refusal to stay stagnant, it pulls people in. So if you've ever felt stuck, ask yourself, what am I living for? And when you find even the faintest spark of a reason, start there. You don't need to shout. You just need to take the next step. And trust me, the world will notice. 9. Pre-selection. Why being chosen first makes you more attractive. I want you to think back for a second. Have you ever walked into a room and noticed all eyes? Especially the women's, drawn to a guy who wasn't the best looking or the wealthiest, but somehow he just stood out. You glance around and realize he's not alone. He's relaxed, chatting easily with a few women, laughing, calm. He's not trying too hard, not chasing. And suddenly it clicks. He's already been chosen. He's been pre-approved by other women. And that changes everything. This is what psychologists call pre-selection, a powerful primal concept. We're drawn to what others already value. In my years working with men in their 30s, 40s, and beyond, I've seen this over and over again. Some guys told me they'd been ignored by women for years, until they started re-engaging with female friends, joining community groups, and just being more socially active. And something strange started to happen. Women who never noticed them before suddenly became curious. They'd start asking, "Who is this guy? What makes him so comfortable around women? What am I missing?" This isn't some manipulation tactic. It's simply how the human brain works. Like when you see a restaurant with a line around the block, you assume it must be good, right? We can't help but respond to social proof. And women feel it too. I remember one man I worked with, a 50-year-old widower. He told me, "I haven't dated since my wife passed. I just don't think I have anything attractive left to offer." I told him, "You don't need to jump into dating. Just rebuild your social world. Connect with high-quality women. No agenda. Just be present." A few months later, he smiled and told me, "I've never had this much attention from women without doing anything flashy." Nothing about his looks changed. What changed was perception. Women saw that other women valued him, respected him, and that shifted the energy. So if you're a good man, a thoughtful man, a man with depth, don't sit back and wait to be discovered. Get out there. Build meaningful relationships. Not to impress anyone, but to connect, to live, to engage with life. Because once people start choosing you, once they feel safe around you, enjoy your company, women naturally begin to wonder, what's so special about him that I haven't noticed yet? And that my friend is where the real attraction begins. 10. Masculinity is emotional control, not suppression. I want you to pause for a second and picture this. A storm is rolling in. The sky turns dark. The wind is howling, trees are bending. Chaos is everywhere. But in the middle of it all, there's a man. He's not yelling. He's not panicking. He's not pretending to be invincible. He's just standing there, solid, steady, taking one calm step at a time. That my friend is real masculinity. Not bulging muscles, not a loud voice, but the ability to stay composed when everything around you starts to fall apart. I once spoke with a man in his 40s going through a brutal divorce. He told me I used to think being a man meant never crying, always acting tough. But I've learned that strength isn't about hiding emotions. It's about not letting them control me. And that's the truth. In Stoic philosophy, the strong man isn't the one who feels nothing. He's the one who can feel everything and still choose how to respond. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, who ruled during war and plague, once wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing against. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." Women, especially those who've been through life, they don't need a man who's tough in the old school sense. They need emotional safety. They want someone who stays calm when they're overwhelmed, who listens when they're hurting, who says, "I understand," instead of, "You're overreacting." But to become that kind of man, you have to master your own inner world first. Masculinity isn't about dominating others. It's about keeping order inside yourself so that you can create calm and strength for the people around you. When you can stay grounded in the chaos, a woman feels safe with you. She trusts you. She opens up because she knows you won't crumble. You can start small. Don't lash out when you're criticized. Don't get sucked into emotional back and forth games. Breathe. Step back. Ask yourself, is this reaction coming from the man I want to be? Because a truly masculine man isn't one without emotion. He's one who owns it. He doesn't explode. He doesn't retreat. He stands like that rock in the sea. And that quiet steadiness, that's what makes her want to stay. 11. The steadfast man. I want you to picture this for a moment. A woman is sitting alone at a cafe. She's scrolling through her phone, buried in messages from all kinds of men. One says, "I miss you," after ghosting for 3 days. Another is hot one moment, cold the next. His emotions swing like the weather. Someone else promised to call and disappeared like he never existed. Now, in that sea of inconsistency, one man stands out. He doesn't say too much. He doesn't rush. He's not flashy or trying to prove anything. But when he says he'll be there, he shows up. When he says he'll call, he calls. He follows through. He acts before he talks. And when he speaks, he means it. You see, in today's world, people forget that consistency is a form of strength. I've worked with many men, over 40 men, who've lost everything after a crisis or gone through heartbreaking divorces. And when I ask them, what helped you rebuild your life? It's never about getting lucky or finding the right woman. What they usually say is something like, "I started keeping my promises to myself. I got up early. I called my kids when I said I would. I did the thing I said I was gonna do." And from there, everything slowly started to change. In Stoic philosophy, steadiness isn't just a virtue. It's the foundation of a directed life. Epictetus said, "No external thing has power over you unless you allow it." A steadfast man isn't someone who never gets hurt. He's someone who keeps walking even when he's hurting. And women, especially those who've been through pain, they notice this. They're not just listening to what you say. They're watching what you repeat. You say you're going to call. Do you? You say you're changing. Are you still doing it 3 weeks later? A steadfast man isn't perfect, but he's reliable. And in a world full of broken promises and fleeting emotions, that reliability becomes incredibly attractive. So if you're trying to rebuild trust with others or with yourself, start with one thing. Keep your word, even if it's just to yourself. Because when you live like a steady rock in the waves, people come back to you. Not because you're chasing them, but because deep down they know you're not going anywhere. 12. Emotional intelligence. I want you to remember a moment like this. The woman you love is crying. She's had a rough day, one of those where the little things pile up until they finally break through. Tears. A shaky voice, repeating the same words over and over. And you, like many men, immediately try to fix it. Don't overthink it. You're being too sensitive. Let me tell you what you need to do. And somehow, it only makes things worse. Ever been there? I've heard this from hundreds of men in their 40s and 50s I was trying to help. I said things that made sense, but she didn't hear me. She just cried harder. The problem isn't logic. The problem is this. You didn't meet her where she was emotionally. And if we're being honest, you probably weren't fully in tune with your own emotions either. From a Stoic perspective, emotional intelligence means the ability to observe emotion without being ruled by it. It's awareness. It's knowing when to stay quiet, when to gently hold her hand and say nothing at all, when to recognize your own rising anger and say to yourself, I'm upset right now, but I'm not going to let that hurt someone I love. You see, a man with emotional intelligence isn't just gentle. He creates emotional safety, a space where a woman feels heard, not judged, a space where she can be fully herself, even when she's vulnerable. I once taught a Stoicism workshop for men. One of the guys, he was in his 50s, a retired firefighter, shared something powerful. He said, I'm used to putting out fires, fast, direct, efficient. But when my wife was grieving her mother, nothing I said helped. That's when I learned sometimes you don't fix it. You just sit with it. Seneca once wrote, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. Emotional intelligence is understanding this truth, that sometimes people don't need advice. They just need your calm, honest presence. So the next time someone you love is hurting, overwhelmed, or angry, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what do they really need from me right now? Advice, or a quiet, safe place to fall apart, because a man with emotional intelligence doesn't try to control others. He masters himself, and that gentle strength is something a woman never forgets. 13. True passion. Let me paint a very ordinary scene for you. You're chatting with a man talking about work-life routines. Everything sounds fine, stable, on track. But then there's a moment. He mentions something and suddenly his whole face lights up. Maybe it's the old guitar he's picking up again after 20 years. Maybe it's those quiet early morning bike rides through the park. Or a dream he's had for years to open a little coffee shop by the lake after retirement. In that moment, he comes alive. You see it in his eyes, his energy. He's not just talking anymore, He's feeling. And that right there, that's real passion. That's something you can't fake. Over the years, working with men in midlife, I've realized something. Passion isn't just a hobby. It's the fire that reminds us we're still living, not just existing. And women, especially emotionally intelligent, grounded women, pick up on that more than you think. They're not drawn to a flawless resume. They're drawn to a man who's excited about something bigger than money, status, or praise. I once worked with a retired engineer in his 50s. His life had grown quiet, a little dull, until he started building paper airplanes again, something he loved as a kid. He shared that passion with local kids in his neighborhood, then started a Sunday afternoon workshop for them. And one day, with a light in his eyes, he told me I didn't think at this age anything could make my heart race again. But I was wrong. In Stoic philosophy, passion isn't emotional chaos. It's a deep commitment to something meaningful. It's what makes you get up early. It's what makes you learn, try again, keep going even when no one's watching. And when a man is lit up from within like that, he doesn't need to chase attraction. People feel it. They gravitate toward it. Because real-life energy, it's magnetic, and it can't be faked. So if life feels a little cold right now, go back. Back to whatever once made you feel most yourself. Whether it's painting, gardening, fixing cars, writing, building something with your hands. Do that. Because when you're living with real passion, you become the most attractive version of yourself. And for women, and really anyone who truly wants to be close to you, there's nothing more beautiful than a man fully alive, chasing what he believes is worth living for. These 13 qualities we've explored together, from discipline and confidence to emotional stillness and passion, aren't tricks. They're not tactics to manipulate anyone or make someone fall for you. They're the foundation of becoming a grounded, deep, and authentic man. If you're in the middle of a life shift, rebuilding your identity, or simply wanting to live a more meaningful life, know this: you're not alone. We're walking this journey together, whether you're 30, 50, or 60. If something in this video spoke to you, drop a comment below and let me know which part hit home. Hit like, share this with a brother who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, so we can keep walking this path together and bring the wisdom of Stoic masculinity into everyday life.